As a young man currently experiencing the apocalypse, I've decided that the best way to cope with this crippling sense of hopelessness I feel, is to completely surround myself with as much escapism as humanly possible. However, lately it has become increasingly more difficult to ignore the crushing weight of reality, since even my favorite hobby has become filled with negativity. Meaning that now I need an even stronger dose of escapism, in the form of a video game, that will let me escape the stress of playing video games. And the best option for this is Animal Crossing, a friendship simulator for lonely people, about fulfilling the millennial fantasy, of running away from all responsibilities, and moving to a place where housing is actually affordable. At this point you might be wondering about which one of the games I'll be covering in this video, and the answer is, all of them. Because they're all the exact same, with only a small level of variability in regards to your job title. You start in a vehicle heading to a small community of marketable animals. Your character is a mysterious outsider, moving into this secluded city with no money, no possessions, and no acquaintances, using a fake name that he clearly just made up on the spot. Which is of course, completely normal. Luckily for you, this community seems very welcoming of strangers with no verifiable criminal record, and you'll be quickly taken in by a local raccoon businessman called Tom Nook. This is the part of the video where I'm supposed to make some hilarious joke about how Tom Nook is a greedy crook that enslaves the player in an endless cycle of debt. However, I refuse to participate in the slander of this family man. Tom Nook is an honest, hard-working raccoon that sells this stranger a house without asking for any kind of upfront compensation, trusting the player to pay this interest-free debt on their own time. The negativity you see on the internet surrounding this character is nothing but fake propaganda, manufactured by Red, a morally bankrupt fox that is so incompetent at his job, that he tries to scam the player by charging 4,000 bells for the original Mona Lisa. Much like real life, this game has no clear objective, meaning that you will have to make up your own way to pass the time, like for example, making irresponsible purchases in an attempt to fill the void inside your soul, and then working tirelessly to pay off the resulting crippling debt. Unlike real life, however, getting rid of your debt is actually possible. All you need to do in order to achieve this, is exploit nature and its creatures for your own personal gain. There are a lot of activities to do that reward the player with varying amounts of money. These include catching bugs, shaking trees, fishing, extorting rocks, and even gambling. That being said, the most important part of the Animal Crossing experience isn't the money or the existential crisis, but the little villagers you interact with. There are currently 397 of them, which sounds like a lot, until you realize that they only have 8 different types of personalities. And yet, despite the limitations, this game still somehow manages to make each one of them feel somewhat unique, and I think a lot of this is due to the way we make up our own headcanons about these characters. Getting to know your villagers and making up little stories based on their design is part of the fun, and my personal favorite example of this is Ribbot, who is a frog with the jock personality, that loves to work out despite his unique condition of being a robot, leading me to believe that this poor, misguided villager somehow does not realize that he is an android, meaning that his AI is tricking him, in order to prevent him from realizing the nightmarish implications of his artificial existence.
But you're a robot!
Really? Do robots have legs, hands, a face? You're delusional!
One thing that I really like about this game is the fact that you don't usually get to choose your neighbors. This helps these characters feel more alive, as it gives you the impression that they have their own little lives. However, a lot of people will actually disagree with me, as they want to create their perfect little utopia with a very specific team of villagers, and this is where we start getting into some of the darkest parts of the fandom. You see, this fandom likes to pretend that they are wholesome people, happily playing a children's game. However, I see them for what they really are, a collection of deranged, shallow individuals that segregate their friends based on looks and popularity. Sometimes, a new animal will move into the neighborhood, and his appearance will be considered not to be very compatible with the rest, leading to a convoluted process of oppression, as the player tries every single trick in the book to force them to move out. These include violently assaulting the unwanted animal by hitting them with bug nets, emotionally neglecting them by refusing to acknowledge their presence, walling off their property, and even creating false reports to the local resident services in order to get them evicted. Once the abused animal finally cracks from the pressure of this constant harassment, a new slot will be available in the neighborhood. And if you think the scummy activities of this dangerous community are over, you're wrong. Some certain characters are so popular and idolized, that players will attempt to obtain them in the black market, where animals such as this tumbler cat, are traded like slaves, with a price being put on their lives, that can sometimes reach upwards of millions of bells. Some of the degenerate players that participate in these actions are so desperate, that they will actually spend real-life money on a virtual slave. All for the sake of satisfying their sick fantasy, of creating a cat-only ethno-state. Overall, playing Animal Crossing is a pretty fun and relaxing experience, and I would recommend it to anyone, even if they don't really have an interest in video games. That being said, at some point there will come a time where the game starts getting stale. And seeing the same dialogue over and over again gets pretty tiring. If this is happening to you, I recommend you check out the original game for GameCube. It might be pretty old, and look kinda dated, but it still has a unique charm that differentiates it from the newer titles. Like for example, the rude animals, that will jump into an endless parade of insults, all because you refused to buy their terrible furniture. The animals here have the personality of emotionally abusive mean girls from a cheesy high school movie, which at the time of release left thousands of unsuspecting kids forever emotionally scarred. I heavily recommend it, and the best part is that now, you can even play it on your phone, by simply downloading the game and them using an emulator.